Let's be honest, our smartphones are pretty much extensions of ourselves at this point. They're how we connect, how we learn, how we pass the time. But what if that constant companion is coming with a hidden cost? A whole lot of science is starting to suggest that our phones are quietly changing the very structure and function of our brains. And what they're finding is, well, you're going to want to hear this. Let's get into it.
Okay, quick question for you. Just take a second. Where's your phone right this very minute? Is it on the desk next to you? In your pocket? Because believe it or not, its simple location has everything to do with what we're about to talk about. And here is the absolute kicker. This might sound completely nuts, but solid experiments have shown that just having your phone nearby, even if it's turned off, face down on the table, is enough to make you perform worse on mental tasks.
So, how on earth is that possible? How can a device that's not even on affect your brain? Well, it all comes down to a scientific concept that researchers have perfectly named brain drain. Let's break down what that really means.
This term comes from researchers at the University of Chicago, and the idea is pretty simple when you think about it. Your brain has a limited amount of processing power, right? A finite battery for the day. When your phone is in your line of sight, a part of your brain is constantly, unconsciously working in the background to not pick it up. It's like a little background app that's just quietly draining your mental battery.
And they actually proved this with a super clever experiment. They brought people in, gave them some tough cognitive tests, and split them into 3 groups. The people who left their phones on the desk did the worst. The ones with phones in their pockets did a little better, but the group that put their phones in a completely different room, they scored significantly higher on tests of focus and memory. And here's the wildest part. Most of them said they weren't even thinking about their phones. The effect was totally unconscious. So that begs the question, how did this little glass rectangle get so much power over us? How did it become something that hijacks our brain power without us even noticing? Because, it wasn't always like this.
I mean, think back to that first iPhone in 2007. It was a tool, plain and simple. But then the App Store opened the floodgates. And then came the real game changer in the 2010s. Powerful algorithms and the infinite scroll. All of a sudden, this thing was no longer just a tool. It had transformed into a highly sophisticated attention machine. Basically, a pocket-sized reality designed from the ground up to keep you staring at it.
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. Features like notifications, likes, the pull to refresh, none of that is an accident. It's all engineered to tap directly into our brain's most basic reward system. Every time you get a little bit of feedback, your brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical. And that creates a powerful feedback loop that trains you to keep coming back for more. So, we understand how we all got so hooked. But what's the actual, tangible, measurable impact on our brains? All right, let's get into the damage report, and we'll look at memory, multitasking, addiction, and stress. Let's start with memory. There was this famous study of London cab drivers who had to memorize thousands of streets to get their license. And it turns out they literally had bigger hippocampi. That's the memory center of the brain. Now what do? We just fire up the GPS. And new research suggests that by constantly offloading this task, we might be letting that part of our brain shrink. It's the ultimate case of use it or lose it.
In multitasking, yeah, it's pretty much a myth. It turns out our brains are terrible at focusing on 2 things at once. What we're actually doing is switching our attention back and forth really, really fast. And for 97.5% of us, this is incredibly inefficient. It's called continual partial attention. And the bottom line is, being in this state makes it nearly impossible to think deeply or to form solid long-term memories.
This constant switching is fueled by a real compulsion. The average user now checks their phone 96 times a day. Let that sink in. That works out to about once every 10 minutes that you're awake.
And the total time we're glued to these screens? It's just exploding. Between 2019 and 2023, the average time we spent on our phones shot up by 23%. That's a massive increase in just a few short years.
You know it's serious when the creators start having regrets. This quote from Tony Fadell, who was on the original iPhone team, is absolutely chilling. When one of the inventors compares what he built to a nuclear bomb that can reprogram people's brains, you really have to stop and pay attention. This cognitive hit even shows up when you do something as simple as reading. A 2022 study found that if you give people the exact same text to read, the ones reading it on a phone have significantly worse comprehension than the ones reading it on paper. I mean, you can see it on the chart. The gap is huge.
And then there's stress. Endocrinologist Robert Lustig explains how notifications basically turn us into Pavlov's dogs. The ding creates anticipation.
that overwhelms the smart, decision-making part of our brain, and it just shuts down. Then the emotional, reactive part of our brain takes over, putting us in a constant low-grade state of panic. So let's just zoom out. When you add all of this up, the brain drain, the weaker memory, the fake multitasking, the stress, and then you scale it up to the entire planet, what do you even get?
What you get is a massive, unintentional global experiment. You have billions of people whose brains are all connected to these devices, all potentially having their memory, concentration, and anxiety levels altered at the same time. I mean, what does that even mean for society?
Now, I know that all sounds incredibly bleak, but it's not hopeless. This is the most important part. We are not powerless in this. It is absolutely possible to push back against these effects and take back control of our own minds.
Some people are trying a pretty extreme experiment. They're ditching their smartphones for old-school dumb phones. And the results are fascinating. People say they feel more present, way more focused. They even have time for hobbies again. But let's be real, there are major downsides. Typing is a nightmare, the cameras are awful, and you might actually get lost. It's a serious trade-off.
But you don't have to go that far. There are practical, science-backed steps you can take right now. Exercise is a huge one. It's been shown to actually increase gray matter. Make a conscious choice to stop multitasking. Pick up a physical book instead of reading on a screen. Try to keep your social media use under 30 minutes a day. And hey, every now and then, try to use your own brain's GPS instead of your phone's.
Ultimately, these are our devices. They're supposed to work for us, not the other way around. We absolutely have the power to set boundaries, to change our habits, and to decide how this technology fits into our lives. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. If it's true that the cognitive functions of billions of people are being slightly changed all at once, what parts of our modern world, our culture, our society might that start to explain? It's a pretty big question, and it's definitely worth thinking about.